Cooperative Entrepreneurship think tank ICET, the co-organizers of today's webinar on large and multinational cooperative enterprises advancing decent work across supply chains. This webinar will explore how large cooperatives across different sectors are engaging their members, their subsidiaries, and their suppliers to promote decent work and social justice throughout their supply chain. This webinar contributes to the International Year of Cooperatives, and it will showcase concrete experiences of large and multinational cooperative enterprises in advancing cooperative principles and decent work across domestic and global supply chains. Before we begin, let me just share a few quick housekeeping notes. Please note that today's session will be recorded for documentation and knowledge sharing purposes. Also, please note that there is simultaneous interpretation available in English and Spanish, and you can select your preferred language at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Please use the chat box to post your questions because we will have a discussion and a Q&A after the analyst presentations. And when you post your questions, this is very important. Please make sure to mention whom you're addressing your question to. This will help us better moderate. And finally, before the end of the webinar, we will be taking a group photo. So please stay with us until the end. And with that, let us begin. To open today's session, I am delighted to give the floor to Simel Esim, head of the ILO's Cooperative and Social and Solidarity Economy Unit, for her opening remarks. Simel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Stephanie. Greetings to all. And I echo Stephanie in extending a warm welcome to this webinar. I'm happy to open this event, which is organized in partnership with the International Cooperative Entrepreneurship Think Tank. This session is also a part of the ILO-ICA webinar series marking the second UN International Year of Cooperatives 2025. The final session of the webinar series will take place on the 20th of November, and it will be on social and solidarity economy responses to crises. The ILO has long promoted the role of cooperatives and other social and solidarity economy entities in advancing decent work, including in supply chains. In 2016, the International Labour Conference called for support measures to increase their productivity and to provide them with opportunities to formalize, further develop, upgrade, and move to higher segments of the supply chain. In 2022, the International Labour Conference called for furthering the contribution of the social and solidarity economy to decent work in domestic and global supply chains. It referred in particular to the development of fair, equitable, and sustainable trade and other forms of cooperation between SSE entities. And it also called for recognizing and supporting the role of the SSE in enhancing productivity. This entails enabling horizontal, vertical, transversal organization of SSE entities and harnessing the complementarity and possible synergies with other types of sizes of enterprises. Decent work in supply chain is a priority thematic area under the ILO's 7-year strategy and action plan on decent work in the SSE, endorsed by the ILO governing body. And despite sustained effort, decent work deficits persist and are often concentrated in lower tiers of supply chains and in the informal economy. They include denial of rights at work, or insufficient opportunities for quality employment, inadequate social protection, and limited or absent social dialogue. These challenges affect workers, enterprises, and communities, and they undermine prospects for fair globalization. Through joint ownership and democratic governance, cooperatives organize economic activity around the needs and aspirations of their members, users, workers, and communities. And this allows those directly involved in production, work, and consumption or use of services to pool resources and to have a say in key decisions, including how risks and benefits are shared. In many contexts, cooperatives can offer pathways for workers and economic units to transition to formal economy and to enhance fairness, democracy, inclusiveness, resilience, and sustainability of supply chains. To realize their potential, cooperatives need a supportive policy and legal framework as set out in ILO Recommendation 193 on the promotion of cooperatives. This framework should be consistent with the nature and function of cooperatives and guided by cooperative values and principles. And cooperatives should be treated in accordance with the national law and practice and on terms no less favorable than those accorded to other forms of enterprise and social organization. At the same time, national policies should combat pseudo-co-ops violating workers' rights by ensuring that labor legislation is applied in all enterprises. The organizations of employers, workers, cooperatives, and other SSE entities all have a role to play in promoting genuine cooperatives that contribute to employment creation, income generation, and decent work for all. Today, we will hear how large and multinational cooperatives and cooperative groups in different sectors and regions are promoting decent work through supply chains. The aim is both to treat these examples as building blocks for more systematic approaches to achieving decent work in supply chains, but also to identify the conditions and support that cooperatives and their partners need to make such approaches possible. I'm personally very excited to listen to our speakers and thank you all for participating. Over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you very much, Simel, for those opening remarks. We will now turn to a brief video from Jeroen Douglas, the Director General of the International Cooperative Alliance, who couldn't be with us today, but shared with us a wonderful message.
So good afternoon, distinguished colleagues, partners from the ILO, and friends of the cooperative movement. Members of our own think tank, ICET, of course. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all here at this webinar. My sincere thanks go to the ILO Coop SSE unit, led by Simel Esim, for co-organizing this important event, and to all the speakers representing some of the world's most impactful cooperative enterprises. So last week, we were in Doha, Qatar, during the Second World Social Summit. There, we closed officially the global 2025 International Year of Cooperatives. Activities go on here and there, but that was the official closing together with the United Nations. The year has once again demonstrated the power and resilience of cooperatives across sectors and regions in advanced decent work, social justice, and sustainable development. Today, we're going to shine light on the role of large and multinational cooperatives and their responsibility to ensure decent work conditions for their workers, and in particular, decent payments. In the world market, by disrupted supply chains and fragile trust, co-ops embody a model for responsible globalization one rooted in people and not in profit alone. So maybe good to mention that last week in Doha, we officially launched Cooperatives and Mutuals 50, a new CEO leadership circle. And they bring a lot of important cooperatives and mutuals together, and they all are aware of the responsibility they have to ensure a living income and a living wage for their entire supply chain. As we want to build a contract for a new global economy with CM50 and beyond, it is obvious that it's our urgent aspiration to ensure that decent work with decent salaries are being met. With ICET, our in-house innovation knowledge and strategy hub, we want to work on how we can learn, how we can understand, how we can also ensure that the issue of living wage and living income is going to be incorporated within the cooperative mindset and within the cooperative practice. The discussions and case studies we will hear today from sectors including agriculture, finance and insurance, retail and workers, and industrial cooperatives exemplify ICET's mission to strengthen cooperative competitiveness while staying truthful to their cooperative identity. As we look to a new cooperative economy ahead, it is nothing but minimally necessary to ensure that we can show the world that through a cooperative business model, we can take responsibility throughout the supply chains, from farm to fork, from well to wheel, from brick to house. We need to ensure that all partners in the supply chain are not only ensuring a decent and safe workspace, but also ensure a decent and living income. So, as a closing, today's dialogue is integral part of that vision. By sharing experience, data, and lessons, we're collectively shaping a roadmap for how cooperatives, large and small, can lead the transition to a more equitable global economy with decent salaries and decent income and prosperity for all. I thank you all for your continued commitment and look forward to the insights that will emerge from today's discussion. Thank you so much.
We appreciate that message shared to us, and even though we're sad to not be able to have Jeroen with us today, his words will accompany this webinar. So now I'm very pleased to hear from Tomás Blondel, representing the International Cooperative Entrepreneurship Think Tank, ICET, who will briefly introduce ICET's work. Tomás, over to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And indeed, Jeroen already mentioned the ICET as a part of the International Cooperative Alliance. So ICET stands indeed for the International Cooperative Entrepreneurship Think Tank, and we have to add do thank to that. The ICET was launched in 2018 as a group of engaged cooperatives and cooperative groups that are linked to the ICA, the International Cooperative Alliance, because they all felt the need to reflect on concrete solutions that could help them to develop new opportunities and to promote the principles and specificities, I'm sorry, I practiced on that, of their business models. The working group is, as said, embedded within the framework of the ICA, used to work on 4 large topics: future of work, human rights in the value chain, which is strongly related to the topic of today, of course, and but also the reporting via, for instance, the World Cooperative Monitor, and in general, the promoting of the cooperative identity as a competitive advantage. In that sense, we have worked on reporting tools like the World Cooperative Monitor, reports on member benefits in the recent past. And since cooperation is at heart of our movement, ICET does not stand alone, of course. As I already mentioned, it is embedded within the ICA and so closely working together with other ICA bodies like the Policy and Communication Department, but also with the recently launched CM50, the Circle of Leaders of major cooperatives all around the world, as well as with other entities like UNTFSSE, Cooperative News, ACID from Spain, or, for example, today with the ILO. In the last quarter of 2025, we chose with the members to redefine a little bit our work streams, to adapt them a little bit to our current needs. And so, as I said, we adapted a little bit the layer to our think tank, a layer of do tank, let's say. And we defined 2 major work streams with each sub-division chapters. The first work stream is on business solutions. The second one is specifically on the promotion of the cooperative identity. And in the first work stream, business to business solutions, we have, as I already mentioned, the World Cooperative Monitor. The publication was just launched last week in Doha. So Doha was a very busy week with, amongst others, the launch of the World Cooperative Monitor it's a great work by Gianluca Salvatore from URIXE and Rebecca Harvey of Cooperative News, piloted by the ICET. The data showed in this Cooperative Monitor that co-ops are very resilient, more resilient than capitalist businesses, especially during a crisis, and for the people who lived a little bit out of space in the last couple of years. We had some crises the last couple of years. Another business-to-business solution that we would like to work on is a carbon exchange program, as well as what we call the P6, the Platform 6, a Principle 6 co-op for co-ops. Those are 3 works, let's say, that we identified within the business-to-business solutions. And then a second stream works on the initiatives on the cooperative identity and how we can capture this in a universal, a clear, bold, but also a very engaging message. And also the exchange with academic partners lies in this second work stream of cooperative identity. So as you can see, these two work streams, they are very interconnected and intertwining with each other. The World Cooperative Monitor, for instance, is not only a B2B tool that helps establish relationships between the cooperatives, but it's also an instrument that helps us to promote our model to policymakers and to a broader target audience. And the monitor is widely cited and referenced to in publications, not only from academics, but also within the United Nations, government, and other stakeholders. To conclude my short introductory message, I would like to make an enthusiastic appeal, let's say, for cooperatives and their delegates to join ICIT, because it's a great opportunity to think and to work together on tools that show a large part of the society that cooperative enterprises meet the needs of many, and they are very hardly needed, let's say, specifically in this fragile and complicated geopolitical context. As many people have said before, the social and cooperative economy is the economy of peace, and in the end, that is all what we want and need. So if you want to get in touch with us, don't hesitate to call on me or Joseph from the ICA. Thank you very much. And back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Thomas. We will now then move to the core of our webinar, which will be the case presentations, when we will hear from the different cooperatives, 4 cooperatives representing different sectors and regions. Each presentation will last about 10 minutes. And for here, I again appreciate and I thank the presenters in advance for sticking to this 10 minutes so that we have enough time then for what I hope would be a very fruitful Q&A. And after which of these presentations, we will have then an intervention by the ILO Supply Chain Action Program in head of Annie van Cleveren from this program, and then an open discussion. So without further ado, let's begin with our first speaker, Young-Sik Young. Young-Sik, over to you. Young-Sik is representing the Korea's National Agricultural Cooperative Federation, and he's agricultural sector advisor at the International Cooperative Alliance. Welcome, Young-Sik.
Yeah, hello, everyone. Can you hear? Yeah,
Yes.
Thank you for joining today's webinar. I'm so nervous to be presenting in front of so many people from around the world, and it's an honor for me. My name is Jeong-Sik Jeong, and I'm currently serving as an agriculture sector advisor at the ICA on the secondment from the NACF. I have worked at NACF for 20 years in various positions related to COOP management and education. Today, I'm here to share several NACF design work cases. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Today's presentation consists of 3 parts. First, I will provide a brief introduction to NACF to help your understanding. Second, I will present the current status and challenges facing rural areas and agriculture in Korea. Third, I will explain NACF's key commitment for design work across the agricultural supply chain. Let's begin now. NACF, known as 농협, was established in 1961. Our organization was created through the Agricultural Cooperative Act, which merged the Korean Agricultural Cooperative and Korean Agricultural Bank. The legislation established a clear mandate to enhance the economic, social, and cultural status of Korean farmers. Next, please. The NACF currently serves as Korea's largest farmers organization. We represent 1,110 member cooperatives with a total membership of 2.1 million farmers. A distinctive feature of NACF is our unique structure. We operate as a federation of local co-ops while simultaneously managing business operations through 2 major holding groups, the agribusiness group and the financial groups. Next, please. The member co-ops consist of 915 general co-ops, 116 livestock co-ops, and specialized co-ops for products like ginseng. Unlike typical producer co-op that focus only on production or marketing, our member co-ops provide multi-services such as marketing, supply, and banking. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. NHF includes 31 subsidiaries, which are organized into 3 main groups: the agribusiness group, the financial group, 4 other subsidiaries. Next, please. Now we will examine the reality of Korean agriculture. The data shows a concerning trend. The number of farming households has declined substantially over the past 3 decades, while the aging rate has increased steadily. The age distribution in 2022 reveals a critical imbalance. Only 7,000 farmers are under 40 years old, while 465,000 are over 65 years old. This demographic shift raises serious questions about the future agricultural workforce and food security. Next, please. The challenges can be categorized into 4 key areas: youth exodus, elderly crisis, foreign worker dependency, income gap. See the foreign worker dependency. Over 64% of crop farming labor and 84% of livestock farming labor is performed by foreign workers. Around 90% lack proper documentation, making them vulnerable to exploitation. Also, income gap between farm and urban is too big. This disparity discourages entry into farming. Next, please. NHF views decent work not only as a social responsibility, but as a strategic necessity for agricultural sustainability. Decent work encompasses fair wages, safe working conditions, social protection, and inclusive opportunities. Next slide. Decent work in NHF's supply chain can be categorized into the following 6 areas. 1. Nurture young farmers. 2. Create fair employment for foreign workers. 3. Decent work for women farmers. 4. Reduce production costs. 5. Strengthen financial access. 6. Expand welfare services. Given our limited time, I will provide a brief overview of 6 commitments, and I will focus on 2 and 3 more. Next, please. The first initiative addresses youth attraction to agriculture. Our NH Young Farmer Academy trains 100 young farmers annually under age 40, providing education, internships, and business training support. We also invest in agricultural technology startups through the NH AgTech Innovation Fund and operate a startup campus for agri-entrepreneurs. These programs demonstrate that farming can be a modern, viable career choice for young people. Next slide. The second initiative is Public Seasonal Worker Program. This program operates through partnership between agri-co-ops and local governments. MOU are signed with sending countries. Critically, local co-ops serves as a legal employer, managing contracts, deployment, and payment. This transforms an informal labor market into a transparent right-based system. Worker protections include fair wages managed by co-ops, insurance enrollment, a multilingual human rights counseling office, 6 languages, and comprehensive training resources with subtitle in 8 languages. The program has expanded significantly, beginning with 5 co-op pilot sites in 2022. It now covers 90 co-ops across 60 local governments. This represents a systematic approach to ethical labor management in agriculture. Next, please. Third initiative promotes women's participation and leadership in agricultural cooperatives. Women represent about 35% of total membership. However, they have been historically underrepresented in governance structures. Progress is measurable. Currently, 79% of local co-ops have at least one female director. Women executives increased from 4.5% in 2015 to 9.6% in 2022, totaling 1,342 women in executive positions. NACF operates a Women Farmers Leadership Academy and supports local women's associations. The Multicultural Family Academy provides vocational training for immigrant women married to Korean farmers. NHF also partners with the large grassroots organizations, including the Korean Housewives Association and the Farm Women's Society. Strengthening women's participation and leadership contribute to both gender equality and rural community resilience. Next, please. And 4, uses collective purchasing power to reduce farmer costs. Through bulk purchasing, we've reduced input cost by 10%, saving farmers $30 million in 2023 alone. During crisis, we also support our members through the subsidies. Next, please. 5, ensures financial security through credit access and insurance protection. We provide loan and consulting, $23 billion in loans and 6,600 consulting cases 2023. For social protection, crop insurance coverage reached 42%, and farm safety insurance now covers 950,000 farmers. And next, please. Yeah, 6, to strengthen rural social protection. Rural areas in Korea lack social infrastructure compared to cities. We operate a rural mobile clinic bus, providing free medical services for our members. For elderly farmers, we run care centers and a happiness call center, offering emotional support and social connection for over 110,000 rural seniors. Next. Mobile legal aid programs reached remote villages, offering free consultation on land, inheritance, and labor rights. Many farmers receive support annually with a special focus on women and multicultural families. Next. Okay, next slide. By now, we have seen how NACF is investing in people across the agricultural supply chain, young farmers, foreign workers, and women and elderly farmers. I hope our case provides insights for the global cooperative movement. Let me conclude with one clear message. This is not a cost, but an investment, the foundation for sustainable agriculture and resilience communities. Yeah, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Young-Sing, for that very insightful presentation and a very deep dive into the case of Korea and Korea's National Agricultural Cooperative Federation. I invite participants to share already if you have any questions in the chat, and then in the Q&A, we will be happy to do our best to tackle them all. In the meantime, I am very pleased to welcome our second case, which looks at the experience of a workers' cooperative. And for this, let us welcome Germán Lorenzo Ochoa, Deputy Director of Global Public Affairs and Communications at Mondragon Corporation in Spain. Germán, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being together in this global cooperative family, which is always good to be in and to feel part of this incredible group that we are, Very, very good. Okay, Stephanie, so if you think it's okay, when I say Click, you do the clicking, please, for me, if it's okay for you, you know.
Yes.
Okay, okay, I think there's one slide before, I think. Yes, that's the okay. Modern corporation, an ecosystem, advancing decent work in supply chains, you know. Okay, click. Okay, I think in our DNA is inside our DNA is the fact that we have to keep on going on a decent level on work and world development. That's part of our DNA, you know, and that's what also our founder father, Jose Maria Mendareta, taught us 80 years ago, you know, when he started with an Utopia Make True, which is he really started the fundamentals of what is today the first industrial cooperative ecosystem in the world, you know, the biggest and maybe more successful in terms of profits and jobs developing, you know, click. And first and foremost, values. You know, Mondragon is based on values. You know, Mondragon is driven by business, by power, by values, and this is important for us. You know, democracy. You know, one partner, one vote, solidarity, scale, a very narrow scale in payment from 1 to 6. You know, people participate. Our workers, owners participate in ownership. You know, in management and also in results. You know, and we always are for and towards people, you know. So all kind of intercooperation systems assure that we share funds together. We try to synergize money inside the group, and also when things go difficult for some cops, people relocation system assure the job is maintained for anybody and everybody in the group, you know. So we are all protagonists, and it's a project created for everybody and all of us for the world, you know. Click. And we are in many fields, you know. We start with industry, but we are in finance. We have our own bank, into retail, into knowledge, our own universities, research and development center. Well, Mondragon has proved that the cooperative movement and the cooperative formula can be useful for any kind of business if you do it properly, you know. Click. And that has reached us to over 11 billion, 11,000 million sales, you know, over 95 parent co-ops, over 7,500 jobs, you know, and more than 250 subsidiaries in the world, you know. Click. And that's bring us to the different structure. As you can see, you know, Mondragon is a democratic organization where the Congress, you know, the group of all the COP members together have the power, you know, but there's a presidency, there's also executive director, and there are industries separate in different fields, as I explained already, you know. Click. And the world has always been our market, you know. I think that we have a differentiation feature, which is that we've always seen the world as a real, I would say, opportunity, not only a challenge and not, far from being a threat. It's an opportunity, you know. So we have developed an international presence, around the world, you know. We are now selling in more than 150 countries, you know. We started in the 60s exporting, then we create our own sales offices. In the 90s, we started with our own multi-locational factories with the idea of being near the client and be competitive, never produce cheaper, but be more competitive, be able to fulfill the client needs, you know. So that brought us to open over 104 practice centers in the world, and over 10,000 people of Mondragon family is in the world outside the Spanish borders, you know. And 75 of our industrial sales are worldwide sales, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, you know. Click. And as I say, what do we do in Mondragon? We do many things in Mondragon. Click. We do in Mondragon many different products, you know, from automotive parts to home solutions, equipments, capital goods, you know, manufacturing, also construction, health and wellness and food aging, taking care, business services and talent development. There are many fields that we've been covered, as I explained, you know. Click. And of course, innovation is part of our DNA, you know. We have to be innovative. In fact, our model was innovative, you know. And we have been able to develop this in different fields, not only in industrial, but also, you know, in education, also in financial. We have our own technical centers now, more than 14. And of course, our university, you know, all part of this ecosystem that really blends together Mondragon. Click. And education has been the leverage since the 40s, since we started, you know. Father Mineta stated very clearly, you know, education is the only asset that never depreciate with time. It gets better, it improves, you know. So we have now many different university campus in different fields, engineering, economics, also business, entrepreneurship, also humanities, education, audiovisual, you know. And we have many also schools and polytechnic schools still, you know. And we have a full, I would say, network of management centers with Otalora as the head of our management training center for cooperative education and management development for our directors and also our people in different organs of Mondragon. Click. And innovation has always been our reason of being, you know. So we've been always elaborating together for the corporate center. We try to enhance and better rate innovation, but we have a full innovation department trying to help the cooperatives to be more knowledgeable in innovation, to be more digital, and to be more technological competitive, you know. Click. And of course, business development has been there. So we still have a department, a unit, you know, that also enhance and helps the companies to start with new business, also try to scout startups in the world to blend with the cooperatives. And we're trying to arrive to the square circle in cooperativism, which is a cooperative startup. But that's something to explain maybe in some other session, you know. But we are there. Innovation is in our DNA. Click. And of course, ASET as our new project, managed by our mythical Iñigo Albizuri that you many know very well, and he has been able to really develop this from inside to outside the world as a real think tank with his own international and social perspective unit, apart from their lab that create companies. And as we say, ASET proves that the think tank should be more than thinking, should be doing tank, creating COPs for the world. Well, that is Mondragon very fast. Now let's go to the crux of the matter. Click. How does Mondragon advance in this work across supply chains? Click. Well, there are many things, and trying to summarize you in a few, I would say, ideas. I would say that the basic cooperative principle are the strong guidelines that rule our behavior and translate as a well-being in supplier relations, global subsidiaries, and extended value chains. So our principles and people in the center are also part of our development in the world, and that's very important for us. And we try to share our business model, our business partnership at co-owners, everywhere we go, maybe with different legal structures, because sometimes cooperative is not possible to be implemented as a cooperative itself, but we try to keep that ideas among our people around the world, and these principles are reflected in our management and governance models, that generate behaviors consistent with these principles, and that is a fact, that's a fact. And on top of this, we have some central units as ATEGI corporate purchasing platform, which enables a full way of developing mechanisms to collaboratively improve, to develop codes of conduct with suppliers, not only at a national level, but also at the world level, applicable to the whole perimeter of Mondragon, national and global, along with ethical channels for reporting non-compliance. And we have started a dialogue towards a code of conduct and suppliers' social responsibility auditing at this stage, in the implementing stage. But so far, we have covered over 8,000 suppliers, which is still a small part, something like 10-12% of our total supplier base. But we're on the way, and we are trying to audit at least, and get deeper more and more into this never-end story of trying to assure quality in this issue of social responsibility. So there we are, trying to compliance with current labor law and corporate legislation, and try to implement, as I'm saying, on a continuous improvement systematic approach towards the world. That's concerning suppliers and supply chain, but also in our people policy, occupational health and safety is something strictly inside our own DNA. We have an integrated occupational risk prevention policy, as well as an action and training protocols in the fields, to the extent that we have a cooperative or certain cooperative, which is specifically funded to be focused in this field, working at the corporate level, very important. So they try to keep on with contingencies and accidents indication systems And they also are trying to develop all this inside the group, you know. So, of course, because of our values and principles, forbidden and forced labor recruitment policy is clear, you know. Privacy and use of personal data and confidentiality, equal opportunities, non-discrimination in employment is something inside us, and we implement indicators and deploy all these policies. Click. And also continuous training and continuous employment and employability to our people is, especially in this situation, is something very, very Mondragon. You know, we try to keep people with us even in the worst circumstances, and when people send their workforce home, we retrain, reskill them, and try to give them a dignifying future development when crisis is finished, you know. So we plan, we guide, and we try to solutionally finance all these systems, you know. Of course, we have anti-corruption compliances, criminal risk prevention, corruption, and all these things are ethically and transparency controlling Mondragon, you know. Concerning our environmental policies, we have a corporate sustainability department with a specific director try to prevent and try to make a global approach on environmental responsibility and try to implement all the management system towards ISO 9001, you know. We try to measure impact analysis, we reduce, and we try to measure also the reduce of footprint in the world, and we try to organize all this measurement to be able to measure the footprint of Mondragon towards a climate policy much more green, healthy for everybody, and with rigor, you know. Also, all these policies are implementing in all our subsidiaries participation model in the world. You have many offices in the world, selling offices, factories in the world. So we use our, I would say, principles and values and our management methods with democratic participation, transparent communication, share results with the people, contributing to people decent work and being part of their companies, you know. We compliance with labor laws, of course, ILO and globally, the occupational health and safety system, just the same as in our headquarters, and we guarantee a sexual salary level of any environment we are in the world, you know. Participation of employees is something part of Mondragon basic principle, you know, and as a result, also part of subsidiaries, you know. They are also part of their assemblies, their information meetings with transparency, clear information communication to them, and similar to a parent company, you know. So they participate in management, results, you know, and they try to be part of our philosophy, you know, as team members, part of Mondragon family, with continuous training and reskilling plans, you know. Well, that is Mondragon very, very schematical and very a little fast, you know, but I want to be punctual on time. So thank you very much for your patience to listen to me, and all the best in this fantastic webinar that we are all trying to do together. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Herman, for sharing Mondragon's valuable experience. Now we move forward to our third case, which highlights the perspective of financial and insurance cooperatives. And for that, I would like to welcome Michael Mugo, the Managing Director Designate of CIC Microinsurance for the CIC Group in Kenya. Michael, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Greetings from Nairobi, Kenya. Jambo, I will go straight into my presentation, and I will start with presentation on who we are. Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. We are a cooperative insurance company. Basically, CIC stands for Cooperative Insurance Company, and we are a Pan-African financial cooperative enterprise operating within the cooperative, social, and solidarity economy. Next. A brief history of CIC. We were founded back in 1968, and the founders were basically the coffee cooperatives in Kenya, and we started as a small agency within the then National Federation of Cooperatives. And between 2000 and 2012, we had accelerated growth, and we were able to demerge and form different subsidiaries to take care of the business sectors that we wanted to focus on. And we also got listed. 25% was listed at our stock exchange, just to be able to provide an opportunity to the members of the cooperative movement to participate in the shares of the company. In terms of expansion and diversification from 2013 to 2024, we had a rapid regional growth. We expanded to other territories in South Sudan, in Uganda, Malawi, and we also formed a foundation to take care of the CSR aspect of the business. And we were also able to register a micro insurance outfit to take care of inclusive insurance. And we also formed a pharmacy called CSE Pharmacy because of the expansiveness of our operation in the health sector. From 2025 and beyond, we want now to consolidate our expansion to become a Pan-African financial group. We are looking at areas of rapid digital transformation. We are looking at focusing on embedded insurance. We are looking at creating social impact and invested insurance, particularly inclusive and impact insurance. Next. Quick facts on CIC Group. In 2024, we registered an income or revenue of 203 million USD. We registered a profit of 30 million USD. We also paid claims totaling 120 million USD. And we also registered an asset base of 478 million USD. We also managed to register a customer service index score of 86%, showing the kind of confidence that the members and our customers have with us. By last year, we had an employment count of about 893 employees, and we were also supporting over 7,000 agents and brokers, mainly drawn from the cooperative sector. Next. In terms of ownership, and it's important in the context of the topic today, for me to draw the relevance of ownership of CIC and what we are doing, that I mentioned that we are a cooperative enterprise, and basically our cooperative heritage and business model are anchored on sustainability. We are owned by over 1,552 institutional cooperatives, and they are drawn from different sectors: agriculture, coffee, dairy, marketing, the financial cooperatives, transport, and housing. And these 1,552 institutional cooperatives have a membership of about 14 million members. And the way the governance structure is within our organization is that we draw the leadership from the owners, the 1,552 institutional cooperatives, and the 15 directors manage the organization through a delegate system, and this is in line with the 74% shareholding from the cooperative movement. It's only 25% that is listed, with about 19,000 individuals who are also members of the cooperative movement. The next. Yes, allow me now to look at the cooperative business model and how then it aligns with the topic of the day. And just to state that the cooperative model promotes decent work through shared ownership, democratic governance, and of course, community empowerment. And this aligns very well with ILO principles of fairness, equality, and social protection. And the CIC's cooperative model fosters long-term employment, ethical conduct, and shared prosperity. And in this case, we are reinforcing the commitment for gender equity, workplace safety, and employee wellness. And we as a group, we subscribe to the cooperative values of solidarity, equity, democracy, and community care. And this, again, is in line with the values of freedom, equality, and dignity, and our commitment for decent work and safety and gender equality. Next. Again, in terms of the institutional and policy frameworks that we have put in place, we as CIC promote decent work by ensuring fair, safe, and inclusive employment, and we are aligned to ILO standards. We also support employee wellness. We are also very strong in ESG strategy. And just to give an example, in 2024, we upheld very strong workplace safety with training. We had 0 injuries, and also we have a very active OSH system. We also have policies and practices in place for recruitment, promotion, learning and development, and we actively promote gender equality, and this is through balanced staffing and even greater female leadership participation. Next. We also align to international global standards, and this includes inclusivity, ethical practice, sustainability, and we have various partners, ICA, ICMIV, United Nations, UNDP, Women's Empowerment Principles, and we continuously audit this. Next. Yeah, I would also want to mention that under the organizational arrangements, we are very strong HR and ESG committee champions. We have cross-functional teams who monitor compliance. We have occupation safety and health committee that oversee workplace safety. We have learning and development department and ESG committee tracking all these progress. And next. Under the CIC's cooperative model and partner ecosystem, because we are very strong in that, and in line with the sixth principle of cooperatives, that is cooperation among cooperatives, and being a cooperative enterprise owned by the people, managed by the people, and offering people-driven services, we continuously engage our members, our partners, and customers through training. And for example, in 2024, we trained over 7,700 cooperative board members with a community outreach of about 1.5. And this year we have again trained over 6,500 cooperative board members with a reach of about 1.3. Next, this is in order to strengthen our leadership and governance models. Again, we support, we do a lot of member support and capacity building. We do training and advisory services. We do capacity building programs. We do financial literacy and risk management workshops. And we monitor this on a continuous basis. And next, we also get feedback from the members. Again, within our solutions, we have come up with human rights and labor rights related solutions, products that cover death, permanent disability, temporary total disability, medical, Workmen Injury Benefit Act, employee liability, supporting these workplace benefits very strongly. Next. We also allow access to remedy and collaboration. We have medical insurance that we have given that promote workers' right to health by providing access to quality health services. We also protect employees from work-related risk and ensuring fair compensation through our WIBA solution. Also, we provide pension and retirement benefit to safeguard long-term economic rights. Next. Again, we have come up with inclusive insurance solutions, and that's why we have created an independent subsidiaries looking at climate-related, solutions. We have agriculture, livestock, MSMEs, financial, life and health, and accidents. Next. A practical example on supporting the cooperatives to enhance member protection is on affordable, simple, higher benefits solution, which is very flexible in offering solutions. Next, just to finalize. Again, these are the training programs. I don't need to repeat on this. We've been going around involving cooperative members and leaders. Next. This is an initiative that we are doing on a continuous basis. We are doing capacity building for members. Next. Yeah, the key challenges, of course, limited partner oversight. Or we have structural barriers, we have capacity gaps, we have data and monitoring limitations within the cooperative ecosystem. And these are areas that we are looking at how we can be able to address. Next. Our call to action, number one, is to strengthen member participation. We need to deepen shared ownership and democratic governance within the cooperative structures. We need to champion people-centered practices, continue advancing decent work, inclusion and employee well-being. We need to drive sustainable impact, and we need to collaborate. And we also need to provide future direction as pace setters and also as influencers within the cooperative ecosystem. Thank you. And next. Yeah, thank you. And that is the end of my presentation. And over to you, Stefan.
Thank you very much, Michael, for that excellent overview of your experience. And finally, now we move to our fourth case, which explores the experience of consumer cooperatives. And for that, it is a pleasure to welcome Debbie Robinson. She is the Chief Executive Officer at Central Coop at United Kingdom. Debbie, are you with us? And if so, can you please unmute yourself, and we will very much welcome to have the floor.
Thank you, and what inspirational presentations we've already heard, and I'm sorry I can't join you for the whole session. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Over to you, Debbie. My colleague will run up your slides.
Thank you very much. So the first slide, if possible, please. Thank you.
It's coming.
Thank you. So whilst the slide comes up, so I'm delighted to be here with you. Thank you for the introduction. We are a consumer cooperative based in the UK. I personally was born very close to Rochdale, the birthplace of the Rochdale pioneers. So very much cooperation is in my blood and in my DNA. And I'd like to talk with you today about our approach to cooperative supply chains. Within the presentation, I'm going to give you two opportunities for us to come together in cooperation and actually grow the economic participation and support of cooperatives on a global scale. Next slide, please. The first I'd like to talk about is in the UK, we are one of the largest independent cooperative societies, but we buy green energy together. We see ourselves as generators of green energy rather than users of energy. So we have completely reframed our thinking. And as a result, with a number of other societies in the UK, we made a power purchase agreement for sustainable energy. And by the end of the financial year, we'll be at 30% green energy and self-sufficient. So this isn't just buying green energy, it's generating our own green energy. Clearly, this activity is best suited within the confines of the UK for obvious reasons, but we'd be happy to share how we got the model off the ground for others to participate. Next, please. We've been very keen to develop our app in our retail stores, and we did that by working with Lubico. I don't know if Lubico is on the call, based in Denmark, but they have a phenomenal product, and this has allowed us to bring it to market much quicker. And other retail cooperatives in the UK are now joining the Lubico app, which again, we could have developed an app outside of the cooperative movement, but we have procurement policy that puts co-op first. Is there a cooperative solution to the need that we have? And we prioritise giving our work to cooperatives above giving it to other corporate organisations. Next. In the UK, we depend quite heavily on imported goods, especially for premium quality products like tea, coffee, macadamia, cocoa, etc. And we have an Our Malawi project, so it was wonderful to see the previous presenter talk about how their cooperative was helping in Malawi. We work with Mafeco, that is the apex body in Malawi, and we basically made a 5-year commitment to sell everything that the co-ops in Malawi could produce, to get them to a stage of self-sufficiency. At the end of the journey, which we will subsidise for the first 5 years, we will give them a 5-year contract to continue trading with them and buying everything that they can produce. Hopefully, by that point, they will have grown and be really self-sufficient and in a position to sell surplus products to anyone else in the market. Next. A natural extension of the Malawi project and also of the fair trade movement was thinking how we can help co-ops in times of crisis, in times of rebuild and an ongoing trading platform. And this is the first of the 2 opportunities that I am going to give you where we can join together to do something phenomenal. Already a number of countries have joined the fund. And put simply, it is financial contributions that mean in a time of crisis, co-ops help co-ops. So the UK and co-ops in the UK are very generous and often give to aid programmes. But this is actually about the co-ops giving to co-ops in times of need. So the current conflict, for example, in Gaza or in Ukraine, would be giving money directly into co-ops and therefore securing the co-op economy. It would be helping to support them during periods of rebuild, but most importantly, it is a platform for co-op to co-op trade. That means when they have rebuilt, they still have a viable food chain and distribution route that will sustain them for years to come. Next. This is the second of the 2 opportunities. It's the creation of a digital ecosystem. We spend millions of pounds on technology, and I'm sure each of you do the same. But the idea is to create an ethical Amazon. Next slide, please. And I'd like you for a moment to imagine if we could connect the 3 million cooperatives that exist across the world with the 1 billion members across the world and create an ethical Amazon, a platform that would be co-created by all of us by small levels of investment because of the sheer scale that we have. And currently, the top 300 co-ops in the world account for 2.74 trillion pounds worth of turnover. That is 4 times the size of Amazon without digitalisation. So imagine if each member of each co-op made a small donation and we were in a position to create such a platform. We, with our sort of turnover, would never be able to afford it on our own. But we have managed to have this wonderful idea that sped so quickly without technology. Imagine if we were able to give this a digital accelerant and contribute towards the creation of a cooperative digital ecosystem. And I think it's something we simply cannot afford not to do. And we must find a way to make that happen. Next slide, please. So that's just to say thank you to all of you for listening. I feel incredibly excited. If you are interested in either learning more about the Fund for International Cooperative Development or indeed for the Co-op Digital Ecosystem, please contact me via the wonderful Joseph, who has been a massive facilitator for bringing us together in cooperation to grow the cooperative economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Thank you for joining us and for making time in your very busy agenda for this webinar. And we also thank very much the speakers for the incredibly rich and insightful presentations that they have shared with us. Thank you, Germán. Thank you, Jonsik. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Debbie. To connect these experiences then with the ILO's broader work on decent work on supply chains, we now are very pleased to welcome Annie van Claveren, a supply chain specialist with the ILO's AP Special Action Program on Supply Chains. So Annie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, and I'm very excited to be here with you today among so many cooperators and of course with our friends in the COP-SSE unit. And it was really inspiring hearing about all of these cases, very varied, looking at the different types of business models. And perhaps let me start by framing this a little bit, because when we talk about supply chains, especially global supply chains, we are really talking about production networks that connect millions of workers. We heard in the examples, for example, I took notes, Mondragon that creates over 70,000 jobs, the National Agricultural Cooperative Federation representing 2.1 million farmers. So the impact is really massive. And we have businesses of different types and also communities that are interconnected through these supply chains. So supply chains are very powerful engines of growth, but they also carry risks, as we know, environmental degradation, informality, and what especially concerns us are decent work deficits in supply chain. So what's really interesting about this webinar for me is to show how cooperative enterprise models are demonstrating very concrete pathways for advancing decent work beyond the enterprise level and along their supply chains, being these national or region or global, as in the different examples that we have seen. And some particular elements that really kind of jumped to my attention were how democratic governance strengthens accountability towards workers and producers and suppliers. Also, the leverage that large and M&E cooperatives can have to reduce vulnerability at supplier level, which is a very common problem, pushing precarious and decent work deficits, and how the support system are in place for suppliers and partners, and how cooperative networks can really embed human rights due diligence and good labor practices through coordination with their various partners. And now, having reflected a bit on what I heard, let me tell you about what we're doing in the ILO to realize decent work in supply chains. So this is not new work to the ILO. The ILO has been working on supply chains as an entry point to promote decent work for a very long time. But what is relatively new is that in 2023, the ILO adopted its 5-year strategy on decent work in supply chains. So this is now our guiding framework, our compass, to really use supply chains to promote decent work. And the strategy is built into 7 action areas and 20 outputs. And do not worry, I will not take you through these 20 outputs, but I will just highlight some of the key foundations of the strategy, the building blocks. So first, it's really aimed at tackling the root causes of decent work deficits, understanding that this requires collective action, not only action by governments and employers and workers organizations, which are, of course, ILO constituents, but also enterprises and other stakeholders. So this really requires a collective action because many of the challenges are systemic and structural. So this strategy is really grounded on international labor standards, social dialogue and tripartism, a smart mix of mandatory and voluntary measures at national and international levels, and gender equality, non-discrimination, and inclusion. And many of these themes came out in the cases that we just heard. So the strategy calls for coherent action within the ILO, across different sectors and regions, and to really leverage ILO means of action. So what does this mean? So it goes from strengthening international labor standards and their application in law and in practice, with a special focus on enabling rights. So this, as you may know, are elimination of child labor, forced labor, ensuring equality in opportunity, diversity, also the right to a healthy and safe working environment, and especially in the context of supply chains, freedom of association, and collective bargaining. Why? Because this is a key element to address power imbalances in the chains and also to ensure that there is increased compliance for the workers that need it most, especially, as Simel was saying at the beginning, in the lower tiers of the supply chain. So I'd be also curious to hear then in the Q&A what are the examples of social dialogue in the cases of the cooperatives that were presented. Another important aspect is to support ILO constituents through technical cooperation, and I can share that we currently have over 150 active projects, development cooperation projects, using supply chains as entry points to promote decent work. We are also very focused on making evidence of what works available. So evidence, there's a lot of research, but oftentimes it's difficult to find. It's not always easy to translate insights from research into lessons learned and to use these lessons learned to inform policymaking and also corporate action. So we have created and launched an evidence hub of decent work in supply chains, which is an interactive platform powered by artificial intelligence, which makes easily accessible ILO research on this topic to inform policymaking and corporate activities and policies, and also, of course, the work of our constituents. And this is available to all, and we hope that it can really contribute to filling knowledge gaps. And then, of course, also promoting responsible business practices along supply chains, and we have many good examples. So why cooperatives matter to promote decent work in supply chains? And the examples we heard illustrate this very, very well. One is that with their democratic governance and member-driven values, they are uniquely positioned to address these challenges. And unlike most other businesses, cooperatives really prioritize long-term resilience over short-term profit. And again, the years that these large cooperatives that we heard about have been operating is really a proof of that. All the programs to support members, to support suppliers, again, show this long-term commitment, which really benefits then local communities and also the national economy. Then governance model rooted in democratic participation creates more accountability and fosters alignment with sustainability and decent work principles. And I think also how large and multinational enterprises, cooperative enterprises, can use their collective bargaining power to promote good purchasing practices. Many examples also came through the different cases. How to support local sourcing to create jobs, to address market needs, and then how these cooperative governance structures can create spaces for negotiation, member participation, accountability, transparency, integrity, and sustained commitments. And now if we look more specifically at some of the cases, now I'm going through my notes because I was avidly noting down some of the things you shared. Something that jumped to me is how cooperatives with strong financial and insurance arms, and we heard two cases, show that risk pooling and income stabilization and social protection can be integrated in supply chain management, reducing producers' exposure to shocks and strengthening livelihood security, but also business viability of members. And how agricultural and producer-based cooperatives illustrate that decent work in supply chains is closely linked to demographic sustainability, how we can promote youth employment and job creation in rural areas through agriculture, food security, and also how to improve working conditions for the most vulnerable types of workers. Often in agriculture, these are migrant and seasonal workers who are subject to exploitation. And we know that because of this, without fair recruitment, without legal contracts, they are very vulnerable also to forced labor. So the example of Korea really highlights how this can be a powerful tool to promote for recruitment in agriculture. And then producer and consumer-based cooperatives they show how inclusion efforts, such as women's leadership training, we heard this example from Kenya, for example, how to support also rural welfare infrastructures and market gaps, so going from just buying energy to actually ensuring that this green energy is generated. So all of these producing real good things for the economy and society, and really merging the sustainability and economic and social aspects of sustainability. And I think something that I really find interesting is that when we think for the non-cooperators, for those of us who are less familiar with what cooperative enterprises really are about, we often have a stereotype about cooperatives being small and more survival oriented. And this shows just how powerful and the impact they can have, but also the business case for business models that are rooted in solidarity, in values, and in democratic governance. So I think this is something that I really congratulate the colleagues in ICA and in the COP unit for bringing these examples to light, and hopefully we can make them even more visible. So I'll leave it at that, Stephanie, to leave enough time for the Q&A, but very happy to share further if needed.
Thank you very much, Annie. And we will now then open the floor for the discussion, which will take the form of a Q&A. So there are two different modalities. So first, we have already received some questions via the chat. So I think I will start with one of them, but then I will very much would like to welcome all participants to raise your hand via Zoom, and then we can also take some live questions from the participants in the audience. So one of the questions that was posed in the chat, which was specifically targeted to Mondragon, but that I would also like to briefly ask the participants. And here I need to do to make the caveat that Debbie Robinson unfortunately cannot stay for the Q&A. She had to leave for a competing commitment. So we will still have the insights from Jonsik, from Herman, and from Michael. And then the question is in terms of the challenges, right? So what were the main challenges? What were the main challenges that Mondragon and CIC and ACF faced in advancing decent working supply chains based from what they presented? And I think a very important addendum to that question is what then turned into enablers, right? So what allowed for these cooperatives to turn those challenges into facilitators of their experience in advancing decent working supply chains. So I don't know if perhaps Herman would like to start, given that the question was related originally to you.
Yes, I think that for Mondragon, the challenge was always historically to try to assure the supply chain decent work in global supply chains, specifically in Asia, and specifically when we were sourcing textile products for Eroski hypermarket group, in the early 90s, early 2000s, because I mean we produce a full system, ISO 1000 with a code of conduct, with some auditing with our quality controllers in our intergroup in the Far East office in Hong Kong, together with other Scandinavian COPs and Italian COPs, and that was more or less the policy and the mechanism we implement, and we follow that in our first level suppliers, but when you try to go upstream, up to the supplier of your supplier, to the raw material supplier of your supplier, that was quite a challenge, and that is something that we try our best to go upstream, but sometimes it's difficult to guarantee that the full supply chain in that particular field of textiles in Asia was secure. That's a fact, to be honest. Thank you.
Thank you, Herman. Michael, would you like to perhaps contribute something from CIC's experience? Michael, are you with us?
Stephanie.
Yes.
Of course, as I said, quite valid. One of the biggest challenge we have is limited partners oversight, issues of people also getting to understand the laws. So even execution becomes a bit difficult. A lot of these partners also now don't have structured policies in place. We also have structural barriers, like even within our law and and governance area. We also have issues of capacity and skills. As much as we might also want to support, assist, and also connect with the supply chain, some of them could be a bit limited because of the stage at which they are, the formative stage. They have more more demanding challenges than probably issues of labor laws. We have continuously tried to educate. We have tried also to come together as the cooperative movement and address those issues. Also improve on capacity, particularly on training and skill building, and also trying to help them in terms of coming up with the right governance structures, and even trying to reach other bodies that could be interested, so that we can then formulate some of these laws and policies just to be able to guide. Again, we also have a lot of challenges where poverty is prevalent. It's very difficult to go and start addressing certain gaps in the labor flow. Someone will ask, surely you are telling me not to utilize this labor. This child doesn't have a respite. What am I going to do, or what are they going to do? So they would rather even get into that kind of child labor than even adhere to the policies. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Youngsik, perhaps you would like also to share some insights on the challenges that NACF faced, and what how do they turn into enablers for advancing decent work into supply chains?
Joseph.
Yes, I will. My opinion, our structural limitation to youth inclusion, firstly. So NHF operate the NH Young Farmer Academy and provide startup support. But around 100 young farmers per year, so a little bit there are the structural barriers, and especially but in agriculture is not so. Agriculture income, limited access, and rural aging, and urban rural, the difference gap.
Youngsik, I'm sorry, we are having difficulties hearing you. I think you're having a bit of an issue with your connection.
Can you hear? Can you hear?
We can hear you. Can you try again?
Yes. Yes. In my opinion, some limitation in this aspect. Firstly, I think a structural limit to youth inclusion. NH Young Farmer Academy provides startup support. Every year, 100 young farmers. In agricultural environment, there are low agricultural income, limited land access, rural living, and in urban life. So that one, I think the problem is the women leadership also. We are trying to high positioning, but despite of that programs, the women farmer leadership a little bit take time. So yeah, and also I think financial risk also we have. Decent work programs such as the welfare services and happy call center, insurance coverage. It depends on the financial sustainability. We what can I say, the public subsidies from the government a little bit. So yeah, and implementation gap among the local cooperatives. There are so the agri-based, so big.
Apologies to interrupt you, but we still hear you a bit interruptedly. Perhaps if you would turn off your camera, that would be better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, so there are some to make for our members. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for those insights. So the challenges I echo from your answers are, of course, of different nature, but I think different COPs across different sectors can definitely relate. Financial constraints, time constraints, the difficulties of navigating the different tiers of the supply chain, and how through their different experiences, this also can be turned into opportunities to advance practices that tackle those work deficits across the supply chain. I think I will now take one question from a participant in the audience, and then we will circle back again to some of the questions in the audience. So, Joan Simon Rodriguez, you had your hand up.
Yes. Thank you, first of all, for all the interventions. My question is directed to Mr. Michael Mugo, and it's about communications, because I'm a journalist by profession and by formation, and my question is how you make what?
I'm sorry.
No, my question is how you make the job that you do and the products that you offer to be known by the general public, especially taking into account that your company, your cooperative group is transnational. No, it includes like different countries like South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, or Malawi that are different by nature, and they have like different stories and different publics. And like which kind of means of communication do you use, and which are the main challenges to communicate with the pan-African audience in this case? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joan Simon. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joan. A very, very good question. Yes, as you've said, we have to use different communication platforms and messages. Our marketing and communication mix is quite distinct, because we now are able to use various platforms. We use social media. We are using radio, TV. There are those grassroots communication platforms that are very, very popular in some of those areas. So it is very targeted. It depends from one region to the other, because what you subscribe in Kenya could be different from what you subscribe in South Sudan or Malawi. And what we do is that we also study the target audience. And once we study the target audience, we decide which is the easiest way. For example, when you're communicating to the person who is down there at the grassroots level, the person who is a farmer, a livestock, producer, or even a woman who is there in the market, you cannot use the same means, because they don't have access of various platforms, and therefore you have to be very targeted. But fortunately in Kenya now, social media is as big, and therefore we are able to use a lot of it, but mostly we use face-to-face, because that is what really works for the cooperatives. We use the annual general meeting, we use the education day forums, we use the leaders meeting, we use school meetings when they are having their the group meetings. Groups are also very popular in Kenya, and each and every region has a group. Normally, we just use those platforms. We use churches and religious organizations, so various means. So it is quite far diverse depending on the target audience. Of course, we have a lot of challenges because of the diverse language that we have in Kenya and Africa, but we try to customize to the target audience that we are going to. So thank you, and back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you very much, Michael. I will take one more question from the chat at this time, and then I will give the floor to Nimi Langer, who has also his hand up for a question. So I think this is also a question that could go to all three of the participants. And it relates to social dialogue. And the specific question is, how do cooperatives deal with social dialogue issues in relation to the engagement with governments, trade unions, and other employers' organizations? For instance, partnerships with employers and workers' organizations. I think this is something that was also highlighted by Annie's intervention, and we would like to perhaps know a little bit more about how social dialogue is also incorporated into the practices that you advance in your cooperatives. Thank you. Perhaps let's start by Youngsik this time. Okay, maybe Michael, since you're still there.
Yeah. I mean,
I think we can hear you. Yes.
Yes. In Kenya, we have a very structured way of addressing some of those issues. The cooperative movement in Kenya is very, very strong. About over 16 million members, and right from the government, from the government level, we have structures that have gone down. We have a ministry, a State Department. We also have various apex bodies, national cooperative organizations. At each and every step, there is representation. Even within our own organization, the directors through the delegate systems are appointed from the grassroots, from the member shareholders. So in terms of addressing some of these matters, it's very easy for us to dialogue. It's very easy for us to converse with the whole ecosystem because of those structures, and information flows. It permeates down to the lowest of the levels. In Kenya, the cooperative knowledge is very, very deep. Even from the rural areas, the areas that you might say are not served by the current, infrastructure, has a cooperative. So in terms of communication, you will have communication from the grassroots. If it is a proposal, they come from the grassroots, they go to the second tier, then they'll come to maybe the state tier, and then the national government. So we always have those engagements. They're always meeting. We're always involving them, and we're always exchanging ideas on how to improve the cooperative ecosystem and the cooperative movement. And it is well known, even by the youngest, as for youngsters as old as 11, 12 years, they understand the cooperative, and therefore that conversation becomes very easy, that engagement becomes very easy, that dialogue becomes then very possible because of the structures that were set right from the 1960s. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you.
Yes, what I can refer on Mondragon, Stefan, is Mondragon has been historically really fulfilling this social dialogue continuously, non-stop, and in a very intense way. You know, I mean, not only at the municipal level, town halls with our cooperatives in different part of the full country, but also at the corporate level, we've always maintained an active, dynamic dialogue with regional governments, in our case, Basque government in the Basque country, with national government in Madrid, central government, and also even with Brussels Commission. So at all levels, Mondragon has been always very active, and also governments are very fond on talking to Mondragon because, well, you can imagine which government doesn't want to create jobs in any place of the world, and that's what Mondragon basically tried to do, continuously create jobs, and create working opportunities and create new companies. So it's something which is quite appealing for governments. That's on the more government side. On the union side, I can tell that we don't have much interaction with unions because we don't have unions in our cooperative systems in Mondragon. I mean, we are all workers and owners, so we really don't have the need of having unions inside. And we have an organ called the Social Council, where we every month together we meet management with workers, and we discuss any social issues that can be raised at that level. So there's not much need in having a connection with unions, only on some, I would say, protocol basis or some, I would say, social level, but not professionally, I would say. Well, that's the way things work in Mondragon. Thank you.
Thank you, Herman. Jonsik, is there something you might like to add from an ACF experience?
Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, actually, especially Korea.
Oh, wait. I think we still hear you a little bit
here
with interference. Can we try that again?
Yeah, can you? Hello?
Not very well. I'm so sorry.
Hello?
Perhaps you can, may I suggest that you could turn your insights into the chat if that's helpful, so that at least we also get your insight from these very interesting questions. Thank you, Jonsik. Thank you. And then the second question from the participants was from Nimi Langer, but you put your hand down. It's because it was, you still have your hand up. Very good. So go ahead, Nimi.
Hi, thank you. My name is Nimi. I'm from kibbutz in Israel. And my question is, now when we are studying the well-being and the community and the importance of the community, do you see any move from the look of economical wealth to economical well-being, especially on the international level of dealing, and how can we create maybe communities internally, strengthen our community, not only money-wise or maybe, but also externally with other people that we're dealing with. How can we strengthen the community around the world of cooperatives? Because it's one of our advantages that cooperatives is a community. So how can we strengthen it in an international level?
Thank you very much, Nimi. So, Herman, perhaps you would like to.
Well, I think that the only way to really try to match up our cooperation or international intercooperation, I would say, through alliances and trying to work together in some key issues, And one can be, for example, trying to be much more active in our international organs in the world, and trying to make a common front towards the world main institutions as a COP members and a COP lobbies. I used to use the word lobby, and that's one front. I think that we can really work together in a more intense way, And there are always the side of know-how and the way we operate and putting together our best practices, and trying to see how can leverage and try to excel the way that COPs work in the world, trying to share our best practice, if any, and our excellency in the course that many of COPs in the world have. I think many fantastic and excellent practices that they may are not well known, and it's good to be able to share worldwide, and at least Mondragon, to some extent, we try to do this, and when it comes to Mondragon Corporation, we try to share the maximum know-how we can in our field, you know, of industrial cooperativism, retail, and finance, and we also try to cooperate at international level, you know, and I think that's one way, and maybe trying to spend more time together, and try to be also very practical, you know, as our founder, Father Mineta, used to say. I mean, the only word or idea good if it's coming to action, you know. I think that sometimes in the corporate world we should be utopian as we are, you know, and we have to be thinkers, but we have to be also doers. We have to really think is good, doing is better, you know. So out of these connections, we should try to implement real action plans with quantitative aims, you know, as well, if I may suggest from my humble opinion, you know. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Germán, for that very insightful response. Michael, would you like to add something from CIC's experience?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
What I would like to add is that we go to stand. For me, it's just, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
The internet is a bit, yes, as I was saying, as cooperatives, our DNA is cooperation, collaboration, working together.
Michael, I think we're losing you as well.
Regardless, what we need to do is work more in supporting those nations and as we have with.
Better, yes. Would you like to give it another try? I think we might have lost Michael for a while. So in the meantime, while we resolve these technical issues, perhaps, and as we come closer to the end of this webinar, we are very grateful for all the very insightful questions, but I think we will have time to perhaps gather the questions from Ramon and from Zakaria, who have the hands up. I think we will get both questions, and then I'll add a third one from one of the many ones that were posted in the chat. And then we let the participants answer to what resonates the most with them. And then we, of course, encourage all of the participants of this webinar to get in contact with the presenters and then find out more. There are very specific questions in terms of, for instance, how does the member happiness call center works? What is the specific experience or vision of Mondragon in working with elderly care and with aging population? So for that, I think it's best if you follow up directly. This is very interesting, and of course we would love to have you discussing for hours and hours, but this perhaps would be better done in individual follow-ups. So I will take the questions by Ramon, by Zakaria, and then a third one from the chat, and then perhaps we start rounding up this Q&A before turning over to Simel from some concluding remarks. Ramon, the floor is yours.
Muy buenos días. Seré muy breve por el tiempo. Mondragón tiene una diversidad global de poder tratar con diversas culturas para poder complementar una gobernanza democrática avanzada en el siglo XXI. Solo basta leer a Apple para darse cuenta y poder repetir lo que él afirma con respecto a esa participación. Todos conocemos las dificultades que tenemos cada una de las cooperativas en entornos mucho más reducidos para perfeccionar la gobernanza en la medida que la democracia que evoluciona nos exige. Mi pregunta es cómo Mondragón logra aunar criterios en sus decisiones y actuaciones teniendo en cuenta la acción comunicativa que se llevará o se llevaría, espero, en cada uno de los lugares donde actúa? Muchas
Bueno,
gracias.
es una muy buena pregunta, Ramón. Pregunta.
Gracias.
Oh,
Gracias,
sí.
Ramón, y gracias, Germán. I will take the next question,
Okay,
and then
okay.
we will cluster the last one so that we still have
No
some few
problem.
minutes to
Sure,
respond.
sure, sure.
Gracias, Ramón, por esa pregunta. Germán will get the time to answer back. Zakaria, perhaps you would also like to put your question as well? Zakaria, are you with us? Or
Thank you
yes?
very much.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I hope I'm audible, Chair. For me, it's just 2 comments and 2 questions. One is directed to June, that here in the Republic of South Africa, we've got one of the most biggest sector, which is the agricultural sector, which we are trying to organize at the moment in terms of South African legislation into what we call a tertiary, which is a national body that represents the agricultural sector. And the presentation that he did is very, very interesting to us, so that we want to see probably in the near future, we can create a partnership where they can begin to assist us and guide us into a way where we can organize this particular sector. That's very, very important. And then to Lorenzo, in South Africa at the moment, even though we have got a cooperatives legislation, but we find ourselves that we do not have a cooperative tribunal. And what's very important that we find ourselves that as a movement, specifically as an apex, we are left on our own devices to deal with dispute resolutions among our cooperative members. Perhaps in this case, we can try to cope whatever that Mondragon is doing in terms of dealing with such issues, because they mentioned that they also have a legal department that does that. And then lastly, directed to Michael, is an issue of a cooperative bank. In South Africa, there's a huge contestation between a bank and an institution. At the moment, a lot of organized cooperative banks, there's this particular the feeling that says we shouldn't recognize these as cooperative banks, but we should just recognize them as just institutions. So it's an issue, because at the moment you're trying to establish a national cooperative bank that can provide all the types of services. Perhaps in this case, in a regular interaction, then Michael will be able to work with us and direct us with that. And lastly, it is to Annie to say that perhaps it's about time that here again in South Africa, we begin to revive the working relationship that we had with ILO around decent work, because that's very important around the programs that we are having in the country, specifically in the worker cooperatives through the decent work. So perhaps it's an opportunity to revive that type of working relationship. And then lastly, to Ms. Robinson, it's an issue of seeing how we can integrate our online store. We call it Nkasa store. When we deal with the issue of digitization, to see how then we incorporate that to the bigger forum, as we talk, as we also share the idea of a Amazon of cooperatives globally. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those questions, dear Ramon, dear Zakaria. So thank you very much for the presenters. I will now share the floor with you. Hopefully you can provide us a very short answer in 1 or 2 minutes to any of these questions, whatever perhaps resonates the most of you. And then I think this will be a very good way also to close our webinar. And then the last question that I would like to bring up from the chat is a question for Annie as well, to include her from the ILO. Annie, the question was, what are the plans from the ILO on advancing decent work in supply chains? And we know from the action program, but perhaps also I could also comment that a little bit towards the end in terms of the COP-SSE unit. So for now, I'll just give the floor to Germán and then Michael.
Okay, Stefan. Shall I address to Ramón in English or Spanish? Answer the question, what do you suggest? ¿Mejor español o inglés? No sé.
Spanish.
Spanish, ok. Bueno, a tu pregunta, Ramón, la respuesta es una palabra, es formación y educación. Arizmendarrieta, nuestro fundador, hasta que consiguió poner en marcha la primera cooperativa, desde que llegó a Mondragón, pasaron casi 14 años y medio, casi 15 años donde se dedicó a formar personas jóvenes, educar en valores cooperativos, formar conciencias en el emprendimiento, formar en ingeniería. Hizo todo un trabajo de formación en espíritu también cooperativo, intercooperación, democracia, hablaba también él en un régimen dictatorial, curiosamente, ¿no? Y hay una vieja frase que él decía que es, no hay cooperativas sin cooperativistas antes, ¿no? Claro, eso no se puede hacer en el mundo a esa velocidad, hay que hacerlo mucho más rápido, ¿no? Hay 14 años para formar gente, ¿no? Pero sí que Mondragón emplea tiempo e invierte medios financieros en educar a nuestros jóvenes participantes en las empresas de Mondragón en el mundo, a nuestros trabajadores, para que entiendan también un poco la dinámica democrática participativa de Mondragón, y eso se hace desde los directivos locales, hablo de chinos, mexicanos, indios, hasta que ellos puedan seguir esa cadena de formación y en sus respectivos lugares de trabajo puedan formar a las integrantes de su equipo, ¿no? Eso Mondragón da mucha importancia y te pongo un ejemplo. Cuando yo era hace años el director de Asia Pacífico en Mondragón, una de mis obsesiones era conseguir que nuestro equipo corporativo, desde chinos hasta vietnamitas, hasta indios, fuera parte de Mondragón no solo en cuerpo, sino también en alma, ¿no? Y entender y hacer un esfuerzo de entrarles al headquarters, a nuestro corporate quarters en Mondragón y pasar con ellos días, a veces semanas, para que entendieran en directo lo que es ser cooperativista, lo que supone dirigir equipos con un liderazgo cooperativo y que fueran capaces un poco de trabajar en sus respectivos países con esa filosofía, ¿no? Y es un poco quizás cómo lo hacemos, pero como te comento, claro, es un tema de tiempo y de inversión en personas, ¿no? Eso es como lo hacemos, Ramón.
Thank you, Herman, very much.
My
Michael?
pleasure. My pleasure.
Stephen, sorry, I was offline a bit. Could you please repeat the question?
Yes, I think it was a question by Zakaria. Zakaria, would you perhaps like to rephrase that in 30 seconds?
Yes, it is about the challenge that we have in the country, whereby we want to establish a national cooperative bank, but the legislation here does not restrict us to go beyond that. They just want to restrict us to institutions. So we want to see how then we can collaborate with the CNC in the country, where you can give us guidance, because there is a number of products that we also want to advance to our members. And in this case, your guidance will be very key.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Zakaria. As I said, cooperation and collaboration is our nature. It is in our DNA, and it would please us just to support other movements within Africa. We've been supported in the past by the international cooperative movement, ICMIF, ICA, and most of the partners who are represented here. So it will not cost us anything just to be able to sit down with our brothers to see how we can be able to assist them in terms of actualizing that vision. And we have done that in the past. We have promised, and that's why when we go to other countries like Uganda, we go to Malawi, Sudan, we don't go there to dominate. We normally go there to cooperate so that we can also help them set up same kind of operations. And as I said, this is not something that you can wish away. If we really, really mean, you know, as a cooperators to support the cooperative movement and live the values, there's no way we can do that without supporting one another. So Zakaria, we are ready. I have posted my email address, and you're welcome to Kenya. We can start that conversation and see how we can be able to utilize the expertise that we have and the experience that we have in the cooperative movement to be able to support South Africa come up with its own national cooperative bank and also a cooperative insurer. So thank you, and back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Michael. And now for one last very short answer on behalf of Annie. What is on the key radar for upcoming priorities on advancing decent work on supply chain on behalf of ILO and its action priority program?
Yes, thank you so much, Stephanie. Let me just highlight three very concrete things that we're working on. The first one that I mentioned in the chat is that we have mapped for the first time all of the active development cooperation projects that use supply chains as an entry point to promote decent work. And what we are doing this year is that we are identifying which ones of those more specifically are focused on cooperatives and the social and solidarity economy to promote decent work. And this will be, we're finalizing the mapping now, and it will be published in early 2026 in the form of an infographic. The second thing is that as part of our work of consolidating and really making ILO research more easily accessible, we are also going to look more in detail at what are the recommendations emerging from that research that are relevant for cooperative and social in the context of also the social and solidarity economy. And we are also interested in documenting in the form of a brief what is the role of large and multinational cooperatives precisely in promoting decent work in their supply chain. So very much the topic of this webinar, but we really see that there's an opportunity to make these efforts and this role more visible and to disseminate it more widely.
Thank you very much,
Sure.
Annie. And thank you to all the presenters. I think, Youngsik, we're very sorry that you had connection problems, but I saw that you very proactively shared your contact via the chat for all the participants to contact you for any specific questions that we would like to follow up on. And now, as we are reaching the end of our webinar, I would like now to move forward to Simel again for her closing remarks, and please stay until the very end as we would like to take a picture of this webinar of all the participants. Thank you very much. Simel, over to you.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thanks to all the presenters, participants, not only for the great presentations, answers, but also the practical solutions that the doing beyond thinking was a message we heard from Herman, Debbie, Thomas as well, and how in agriculture, finance, industry, and retail, large multinational cooperatives are working to advance decent work in supply chains in concrete ways. They are doing this, developing partnerships to generate employment, improve working conditions, strengthen social protection, and support just digital and environmental transitions. We also saw that these are not standalone initiatives, that they are anchored in cooperative values and principles, and how cooperatives can contribute to an enabling environment, helping enterprises strengthen their contribution to sustainability and decent work through their business operations. We've seen the partnerships being demonstrated local to global, even during this, I think, session. We saw Kenya, South Africa, Korea, South Africa, UK Co-op Fund. Also, I saw the Caribbean message in the chat. So these are some potential collaborations for follow-up. I think there are you highlighted the speakers, the importance of measures to enable access to information, education, finance, markets, technology, public procurement, especially for disadvantaged groups, and it's something I think that is important as we are public and private procurement that integrates co-op SSE, something that could be something we can further look into. Social dialogue also came as something that may be something we need to elaborate further and see what practices, good practices and challenges and lessons learned are emerging. And And we saw how the crisis response, the counter-cyclicality of cooperatives, how in times of crisis they preserve jobs, including in small and medium enterprises, and offer formalization pathways, including through some of the services. And there were also examples of cooperation, like cooperative supply chains, co-op-to-co-op business and trade. These are actually complementary, I think, to broader efforts to advance responsible business conduct, including due diligence, which can further contribute to formalizing work in supply chains. We saw emerging challenges. Some of these are specific to co-ops, others are common to wider SSE or more generally to enterprises that seek to operate sustainably. Reliable evidence is a key. This is required to inform decision-making. There is a need for systematic analysis of the different cooperatives, large and small, the difference they make, including in terms of decent work, productivity, competitiveness, sustainability. This is something that the ILO is very keen to follow up on. With its constituents and partners. We have a technical working group on measuring the economic contribution of cooperatives. And there's another one also, SSE statistics. We have guidelines concerning statistics of cooperatives adopted by a Conference of Labor Statisticians. So we hope to contribute to more comparable, timely, reliable, harmonized data on how cooperatives are contributing to decent work, including in supply chains. In follow-up, we hope to do more. Yes, as Annie said, we'll have a brief, we'll have this infographic that integrates the Co-op SSE tag. We will also be doing some review of the literature, ILO literature on supply chains. There's someone speaking. How we can see the findings on cooperatives from our existing research and the follow-up there. And finally, it's important to have partnership between large co-op actors and co-op federations and ILO constituents and country offices to deliver on decent work country programs, drawing on the institutional infrastructure of co-ops, rural areas, and the informal economy, where decent work deficits are many. And finally, we saw that the benefits of including cooperatives more systematically in sectoral dialogue and supply chain initiatives, SDG, local development efforts, is really something that can be further enhanced. Thank you all, and to be continued. Over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Simel, and apologies, but I was about to left out dear Thomas to do his concluding remarks. So now I hand over to Thomas for the concluding remarks, and all apologies.
No worries, no worries. First of all, thank you, Stephanie, for the excellent moderation. It was really a pleasure working with you and the rest of the team of the ILO to prepare this webinar. And just very briefly for my conclusive remarks, indeed, I can only acknowledge that throughout the testimonials and the cases that were presented, that once again it is proven that cooperative businesses are transparent, inclusive, and it's very important that these principles inspire and, let's say, contaminate other businesses in the whole value chain. We have heard that democratic ownership, member control are really the core elements of our cooperatives because they align the enterprise purposes with workers' and producers' interests. And so within co-ops, the owner and shareholder is the same as the user, worker, producer, and so on. And so they have thus the same interest, let's say. We also heard that democratic ownership is made concrete via the one person or one member, one vote principle, and so on. And since members have this multiple role of owner, shareholder, contributor, user, worker, and so on role, it is also made clear that values such as solidarity, equality, equity, and so on, they're not only values on paper, they're not only objectives, they are really operational. They are put into practice on a daily basis because members of a cooperative rely on one another to make their own work and their collaborative work run fluently, let's say. And this trickles also down to the governance models of cooperatives, where we see that structural tensions between labor, capital are reduced thanks to the aligned incentives and the collective decision making. To complete the circle, because that's where we wanted to get today, we see that this participation in this governance model has a strengthening influence on the workplace dialogue, and thus also on the conditions that are needed for decent work. And so in that sense, I think we can conclude indeed that through a participatory purposes of the cooperative model, this guarantees a stable long-term approach to decent work as such. And so the essential elements of the cooperative identity, like transparency, participation, and so on, become therefore also strong assets for the cooperatives, distinguishing features in the market in general for new and existing clients, but also on the labor market in order to attract new workforce talent. And as the cooperatives become stronger, they can increase their capacity to shape the behavior and social norms of more and more actors within their whole supply chain, let's say. I want to recall what the presenters' examples showed clearly, that cooperatives are able to create cooperative ecosystems. I think Herman mentioned it literally also, that cooperative itself and the ecosystems are really very important. The testimonials show also that the model's distinctiveness lies not only in the ownership of the coop itself, but also in some sort of coordination capacity it creates across the whole production chain, through learning, through community development, and so on. And so in final conclusion from my side as chair of the International Cooperative Entrepreneurship Think and Do Tank, it's my strong hope and conviction that cooperatives today are inspirational for other economic actors, and that tomorrow they will become even the standard for economic practices all over the world. And therefore, within ICET, we will continue our work and collaboration on solutions that we already offer today. And I solemnly swear, let's say, that we will reach out to the ILO and many other partners for future collaborations like we did today through this webinar, because it's key that we document, share the inspirational practices, innovation in our governance approaches to get the best working conditions for as many people as possible. And as I have learned recently, again, during encounters with Simel, for instance, in Bordeaux, it's only through collaboration and exchange that we will come to a clear, a bold, and aligned narrative that is engaging for a broader audience. Collaboration is important because we must not only focus on the cooperatives themselves, but also on the contextual elements that allow successful collaborations to emerge. And therefore, as a true cooperator, I plead for a continued collaboration between everyone involved, for instance, ICA, ICET, ILO, and so on, to get a good vision on the institutional context that is needed to develop a more cooperative economy. I conclude on this one. Thank you very much, Stephanie, and the whole team at the ILO for making this happen. And now I think it's time for a family photo now.
Yes, thank you very much, Thomas. Thank you very much to everyone. So yes, before we conclude, let's take a quick group photo to capture this important moment. So please, if you can, turn your cameras on. It's wonderful to see everyone together. It's wonderful to get the evidence that you participated in this very insightful webinar. And we thank you once again to our speakers, through our partners, through participants for joining us today and staying with us. On behalf of the ILO, of ICA and ICET, we deeply thank you for your time and your attention, and specifically as well for your continued engagement in advancing decent work through cooperative supply chains. So with that, we wish you a great day, a great afternoon, or a great evening, depending on where you are, and we look forward to meeting you again very soon.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Did you do the photo? Somebody was going to do the photo.
Yes,
the photo
they are doing.
It's
done.
happening.
It's
Yes.
being done.
Oh, because I'm getting off in a second, so I don't want to
Keep your smile, Daniela. Keep your smile.
voice that says, "Hey, you guys."